It's time, Fort Wayne. Your sports, your station. It's the Sports Rush with Brett Rump. Covering all the topics that hit a nerve here in the Summit City.
Clark, 11 yards, touchdown.
Only on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Now here's your host, Brett Rump.
The greatest, most interesting, most important person of all time.
You are incredible. Over on one.
Yeah, well, you're half right.
What is this, amateur hour?
This is going to be huge.
I believe this is going to be our fine stone.
Just when I think you said the stupidest thing ever, you keep talking.
I think that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
That boy ain't right.
The simplest way to put it.
I have problems.
Welcome to the alleged show.
Y'all ready for this?
Thank God it's...
It's Friday, gotta get down on Friday.
Here we go, take it into a sports weekend with the Sports Rush. The work week is over. It's time to enjoy some sports. High school basketball tonight, college basketball coming your way tomorrow. It's NBA All-Star Weekend. Of course, that's got some changes. No Ionescu and Steph Curry in the three-point shooting contest. No Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, no NBA versus WNBA at all.
But still, the excitement of the NBA All-Star Weekend taking place this weekend. That means NBA basketball is off for the weekend other than All-Star events.
Yep.
College basketball tonight. The Indiana Hoosiers will take on the UCLA Bruins, and big news. Told you this already. Brad Stevens has responded to questions about whether or not he has any interest in the Indiana head coaching job, and he says no. So he told Jeff Goodman reporting that Brad Stevens will not be leaving the Boston Celtics president of basketball operations position to become the coach of the Indiana Hoosiers. A big dream by Hoosiers fans.
Yeah, well, you can throw that dream away, throw it in the good catcher, because like you said just about 30 minutes ago from Jeff Goodman for the Field of 68, tweeted out breaking. Boston Celtics president of basketball operations Brad Stevens told the Field of 68 that he is not a candidate for the Indiana University job. Quote, I thoroughly appreciate being a Celtic and love the people I get to work with every day.
So his name is off the list. Who's at the top of the list now?
That's the question.
I found it interesting that according to Jim Coyle, who you hear with Indiana Sports Beat Radio right before we come on at 4 o'clock, that he was saying he thought the overwhelming choice of Hoosiers fans, not boosters, but fans, was Chris Beard. Am I confused or am I missing something? Because I thought clearly the number one choice for the fan base was Dusty May.
That's what I thought.
And I still think that's who it's ultimately going to be, although Grant McCaslin down at Texas Tech, keep an eye on him.
Yep, he has now made his way onto some of these Hoosiers top 10 boards, but still kind of a sneaky pick that not many people would expect.
No, I think they were probably listening to our podcast.
That's it. They heard it. Yep. Now it's on their list.
Yeah, they're following what I've got to say. But I brought up Chris Collins, and I don't think it's completely out in left field. I think Collins is a pretty good coach. I don't know what his buyout would be, what kind of money it would cost, but I thought, if it's something reasonable, at Northwestern, I think there's a ceiling. I just don't see a Northwestern ever getting to a point where they actually can compete for a true national championship. I think they can get through the first weekend of the NCAA tournament, but I don't think their ceiling is any higher than that. I don't see them participating in a bunch of Final Fours. Now, if you can get to the ceiling with Indiana basketball, I think you can be a legitimate top Final Four contender every year. Now, it doesn't mean you make it every year. But much like Kentucky was under Coach Cal, every year you thought that Kentucky's one of those teams that you've got to list as a potential Final Four participant. And I think you can do that at Indiana. I just don't think that's possible at Northwestern. But I just think it doesn't have enough basketball tradition. It's not, Illinois out of Chicago. You're probably going to get the best players go to Champaign and play there. I don't know what kind of money is in the NIL fund at Northwestern. I know the university is challenging and difficult, and I don't know what the admissions requirements would be at Northwestern. But I and so that's why I threw out his name. But Chris Beard, I think, is on the radar. Grant McCaslin, I think, is on the radar. And I think Dusty May is ultimately going to be the guy that gets the job. And I think Dusty May wants the job, based on what I heard him say after the game against Indiana, where he did not, like Brad Stevens came out and said, he is not a candidate. Dusty May did not say anything about not being a candidate. He said he was flattered, and he was very happy at Michigan. Well, that makes both fan bases happy. It's very neutral, but it's one of those things where let's wait and see how this all unfolds.
Absolutely. If you want to throw in your opinion into the hat on who should be the next head coach of Indiana University or who you'd like to see as their basketball coach, give us a text at 260-447-8500. Somebody said, what about Bryce Drew, currently at Grand Canyon University, the Valparaiso kid, played in the NBA?
Which Drew would you rather have?
Yeah.
Would you rather have Bryce or Scott? What if both were available? Which Drew would you take?
That's tough. What about you? Do you have a preference of Drew?
Scott's been there, done that.
Yeah.
I mean, Bryce is doing a great job at Grand Canyon, but their day in, day out competition is not what Baylor has to face.
Right.
And so I think if it was me, of course you'd go through the interview process, but I would probably say Scott Drew on the surface.
Yeah, I agree. He has more of a higher power conference record too, just more experience in the Power Five.
Yeah, and Bryce Drew had his power conference opportunity, and he didn't exactly go gangbusters with it.
Yeah.
So I would probably go Scott Drew over Bryce Drew, but if you've got somebody to throw onto the list, let us know at 260-447-8500. 260-447-8500. Is there somebody that we're missing that we should probably add to the potential prospects list? And, of course, you can get credit as being the first to bring them up if we have not talked about them yet.
I like that. You get credit.
Nothing?
No, nothing yet. Nothing on the text line.
That's because we make so much sense. It's hard for anybody to come up with someone else.
Somebody texted in that you should be the next head coach. You have all the answers, Brett.
No. They're probably being quite sarcastic.
I don't know.
But you look at what it's going to cost to get a top candidate. I looked up some of the top salaries right now in college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And I never know if this is really all-inclusive or if this is 100% accurate, but this is pretty much an approximation to where some of the big names are at right now. Bill Self is at $9.8 million per year. Calipari has about $8 million a year in his deal at Arkansas. Tom Izzo, he's clearing about $8 million a year. Bruce Pearl is approaching $7 million. Dan Hurley, somewhere in that $6 to $8 million range. So if you want a top coach, you've got to expect that it's going to cost somewhere $6 to $8 million.
Yeah.
Indiana would have had to probably pay 10 to 12 to get Brad Stevens. Now, I know I talked to someone earlier today, and they're like, I don't think it's going to be about money for Brad Stevens. If he takes the job, it's because of the challenge and the fact that he accomplished everything he set out to accomplish with the Boston Celtics. He proved himself in the NBA. Now he needs the next challenge, and the only thing that he hasn't done in his career is to coach Indiana, which is the school he kind of grew up dreaming of eventually being a coach for. So I get all that, but the guy's got a really good job at $12 million a year.
Yeah.
Number one, I think Indiana would be overspending to go pursue him and try to put $10 million a year in front of him. I think there's other coaches that you have to go to that would probably cost you closer to $6 or $7 million. And, $3 million a year is $3 million a year. But then the other thing you've got to look at is some of the buyouts that are out there, because I was shocked at the range of buyouts. There's some that there's only, $1 million, $1.5 million. There's some that are like $28 million.
Yeah, it varies a lot by contract.
It is unbelievable the range of what the buyouts could cost you. And so, that's going to be a factor. Do we know some of the buyouts? I know T.J. Otzelberger's a guy that I brought up right away, but I heard he had a very hefty buyout at Iowa State. But this is a guy that won everywhere he's gone. I mean, he won at South Dakota State, and very quickly he took that into a job with Utah. Was it Utah or UNLV? Where did he go out west?
Otzelberger?
Yeah.
I'll find out for you.
He go to UNLV and then, bounced into eventually the Iowa State job. But
Washington? Yeah, he was the coaching career at it was assistant coach at Washington, Iowa State, South Dakota State, UNLV.
Okay, so he was at South Dakota State and UNLV as head coach. Washington, that was as an assistant a long time ago.
But he didn't go out anywhere west before South Dakota State.
Well, no, I'm saying he went to South Dakota State as a head coach, then he went to UNLV, then he went to Iowa State.
Now we're good.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, his buyout would be around $18 million. So,
is that unreasonable?
That's a lot. That's a lot of money.
What's his salary?
I'll check that here for you.
Oh, I thought. See, the list I looked at had the salary and the buyout on the same chart, so it was pretty easy to look at both. But I would guess he's probably in that $5-6 million range. But and I'm like, I think they could compete on an annual pay for an Otzelberger. But $18 million, does that take him out of it? I mean, I don't know that it does. I don't know that completely eliminates him if they decide that is the guy.
Gets about $2.5 million. It says that in 2023, Otzelberger's salary increased from $2 million to $2.5 million. It was set to increase by $500,000 each July 1st through 2025.
So he'd be at about $3.5 million.
Yep.
Yeah, so you could probably pay him $5 million, and that would definitely satisfy him at $5 million.
Yeah, just for reference, Iowa State had to pay about $3.3 million to buy him out from UNLV.
If you were willing to pay Brad Stevens $10 million a year, and you can get Otzelberger at $5 million, that means over a 5-year term you're saving $25 million, and Otzelberger's buyout is $18 million. That's why I don't think it's unreasonable. If Indiana believed that they could come up with $10 million a year to pay Brad Stevens, they actually would be paying less overall to pay the buyout and give him $5 million a year and get Otzelberger. Now, I'll throw him on the list, but again, the guy I think that's going to end up with the job is going to be Dusty May.
Yeah.
Because he wants it, he's affordable, as long as he doesn't sign that extension. Dusty, do not sign the extension if you want to be in Bloomington.
Couple texts coming in on the text line. We've got a joker saying, how about Bill Belichick should coach IU basketball because he's in the college ranks? Somebody else said, what about the James Madison basketball coach? That seems to work for football. I checked, seeing how the James Madison Dukes are doing in basketball this season. They're 16-10, 9-4 in the Sun Belt. They are 1, 2, 3, 4. They are 5th in the Sun Belt. So I don't know if that's Preston Spradlin might not be the next IU Hoosiers head coach.
And so Preston Spradlin is the head coach of James Madison.
Yep.
All right, well, we got to take a break. Big day tomorrow. By the way, the Pink Out game at the Gates Center for women's basketball against Cleveland State, 2 o'clock start. All kids 12th grade and under can get in free at the Gates Center. So not only free parking, but the kids can probably get in free. And you've got cheap concessions. You've got great basketball with 2 of the top 3 teams in the Horizon League doing battle. You've got a 17-game winning streak, second best in the country, taking the floor with the Purdue Fort Wayne Mastodons. This game, when the 2 teams played in Cleveland, came down to a last-second 3-point shot to decide the game. So It will be a fun afternoon and a good cause with the Pink Out going on tomorrow at the Gates Center. Hope to see you there. And, of course, we've got radio coverage of the Mastodons men's basketball team against Robert Morris tomorrow at the same time. 1:45 pregame, 2 o'clock will be the tip with John Nolan on the call from Moon Township, Pennsylvania. We'll take a time out. Speaking of John Nolan, he's going to join us on the other side. It's the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Welcome back to the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6. I am Brett Rump along with Adam Lundy. And coming up tonight, we've got high school basketball. It's our Parkview Sports Medicine high school basketball game of the week. Live from Leo, it's the battle for the top of the NE8 as the Leo Lions host the Columbia City Eagles. We'll be on the air with the game about 7:30, and then the post game around 9 o'clock, broadcasting live from the East DuPont Pizza Hut. Now, that's one of those small carry-out type of Pizza Huts with the drive-up window and the carry-out service. But we will be there. You can hang with us. There's enough room to maybe pick up a seat or two and chill out with us on a Friday night.
Absolutely. And all the carry-out customers, even if you don't want to sit down, you can still stop in, grab a delicious pizza, and say hi and check out a little bit of the post-game show. Absolutely.
Yeah, we in fact, we have had that experience a couple of times with some listeners that have stopped by, waited for their pizza, and then chatted with us during a commercial break. So look forward to that tonight as we also give you previews of tomorrow's regional action. We've got a lot of girls teams in action coming up tomorrow night. We'll give you all the scoop on tonight's boys play, plus what's happening with regional basketball tomorrow for the girls. That's tonight with the Parkview Sports Medicine high school basketball postgame show. Of course, we're not that far from summer. This weather just makes you feel like baseball weather, right?
Right. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the show, too. We're, looking at some of those win predictions for those teams, and it's crazy.
Time to talk baseball, right?
Yeah.
You're right in the coldest days of winter, and that's the best time to talk baseball. And so we got to think about warmer nights ahead. And to do that, the TinCaps announced their promotional schedule for the upcoming year. To talk about it, we're joined on our guest line by John Nolan, who's taking a swing across, I don't know if that's mid-Atlantic, mid-Western, but John, how do you describe Youngstown, Ohio to Moon Township, Pennsylvania? Is there a certain part of the country that defines it for you?
That's an interesting question. It's not the mid-Atlantic. I'll start with that. But
it's not the Midwest, though, either. Is it the Mid-East?
Right, well, Youngstown, Ohio certainly would qualify as the Midwest, I would say. I guess it does get a little blurry once you cross the state line over into Pennsylvania, where I'd say Western Pennsylvania, basically the Midwest. But, it's kind of the Northeast. But, now we're getting pretty deep into the geography, I'd say.
Well, that is where you have traveled this week, and I appreciate you filling in for me on this road trip. It didn't start so well on Wednesday night. The Dons fall at Youngstown. A good battle in the first half. They got off to a great start. Youngstown State battled back. Dons stayed right in it, but the second half really got away from the Mastodons.
Yeah, and we hadn't really seen a game like that all season long, at least since Horizon League play started, right? The Dons had come into that one with just 4 conference losses. 3 of them were a couple of one-point games, another couple that came down to the final possession or to the last couple of minutes in the case of that one on national TV against Cleveland State. So it certainly was surprising to see this team kind of falter like they did in the second half. So I think you just got to kind of flush that one. It sort of is that you're talking about the summer in baseball. We certainly talk about the dog days of summer, right? If there's such a thing as the dog days of a college basketball season, this is it. And so, just about everyone kind of has a game that seems out of character. Dons were coming off of a stretch of 4 games in 10 days, hopefully here with a couple of days off in between games now on this road trip tomorrow at Robert Morris, because it'll be a big challenge in its own way, but I think the Dons should respond much better.
That's the biggest thing I took away from Wednesday night's game is that's a tired team right now because you've got your 2 leaders in Jalen Jackson and Rasheed Bello. They play heavy minutes. They played a ton of minutes in that double overtime game. I'm not sure they've ever recovered. I know the Dons had a week off after that, but I'm not sure they've ever recovered because if you look at some of the shooting percentages, They've slipped a little bit. It's been tougher for Jalen to finish at the basket. I know teams have played him really physical, but I think there's a lot of signs that the team just needs to get some rest and get their legs. And I kind of like the schedule after Saturday because they have, I think, a 13-day stretch where they only play one game. So things will get a little better for the Mastodons. But, hey, this Robert Morris team might be the best team playing right now in the Horizon League. They just pulled off a big victory on the road at Cleveland State, so they bring some momentum into this contest coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, no kidding. As a reminder for fans out there, just like for the Dons, this is the 5th year in the Horizon League. And by the way, when I think we really try to break down the geography, we just focus on the Horizon League map, forget about the whole national map. This is the Horizon League region that we're in. But Dons and RMU both in the HL for 5 years, and while the Dons have a regular season championship under their belts and have been at the top of the conference almost every single season, Robert Morris, first 4 years in the Horizon League, losing seasons. We saw them come into the Coliseum in the early part of December. Mastodons won that game. At that point in time, the Colonials were 0-2 in the Horizon League, and you would have probably, I'll say I was presuming it's going to be another year like that for RMU, right? Well, totally different story. Since they left Fort Wayne, they've gone 13-3, including 11-3 in the Horizon League. More recently here, 3-game winning streak. You talked about the biggie on the road at Cleveland State. They've won 9 of 10. So all of a sudden, this is a team that the Dons are tied with for second place in the Horizon League, and it's going to be a big fight down the stretch to figure out seeding for the Horizon League tournament and who wins the regular season crown.
I understand, too, that was the first time Robert Morris beat Cleveland State since they've joined the Horizon League. That has been kind of their kryptonite or their nemesis. And so now the Dons take on this Robert Morris team on the road at Robert Morris. What are keys? Has Coach Kaufman kind of talked about what some of the focal points are going to be for this game tomorrow?
One more like overreaching theme just coming off of that Youngstown State loss would be that the guys do have to play with more urgency, and especially on the defensive end. The other night, I think you can chalk some of it up to tipping your cap to Youngstown State. They made shots, a lot of threes. That said, again, part of it was the Dons not playing tough enough on defense. So got to bring more intensity tomorrow. And I think this Robert Morris team is one that has had this success in large part because of how hard they play. We were talking about how the Dons maybe a little bit worn down here this time of the year. One thing that's fascinating about Robert Morris with the success that they're having, they really only play 7 guys. They played an 8th guy just a couple minutes against Cleveland State the other night, but their starting point guard, Cam Woods, he played all 40 minutes in that game, and he was not 100% physically. He was dealing with an ankle injury when the Dons saw him in December. I think that's another kind of key piece in the turnaround for Robert Morris, the NC State transfer, getting healthy, becoming one of the top guards in the league. Besides Woods as their leading scorer and one of the top passers in the conference, Alvaro Fulgaris, a sophomore from Spain. He's arguably the most skilled big man in the Horizon League, basically averaging a double-double. So, again, these guys play hard. So Fulgaris gets a lot of his points just beating people down the floor. So I think just having the requisite motor is going to be one of the keys for tomorrow. And another thing that is interesting is that Robert Morris is a man-to-man team, and they don't help a lot on defense. So Jalen Jackson, Rasheed Bello, they're as good as anyone in the Horizon League and beating their defenders off the dribble when they are at least at full strength. That was part of the formula for success in that first win against Robert Morris. But then a counter aspect to that, because Robert Morris is really just playing straight man and not helping and not doubling, they do a really good job of defending the three-point line. Like from a national perspective, they just don't give up a lot of threes. So it's going to be fascinating to see how the Mastodons manage to still get their typical three-point shots up, I would say.
John, we want to look ahead to the summertime because another fun summer at Parkview Field, and the TinCaps have announced their promotional schedule. This list looks longer than it has before. I mean, this is a pretty bulky promotional schedule. Plenty of kids' nights, plenty of theme nights. What are some of the highlights as far as you're concerned with this year's promotional calendar?
Yeah, with a 66-game home schedule for the TinCaps, we might be at the point where we should start to market some of like the Wednesday games as, hey, there's a baseball game tonight, because there's so much going on otherwise. Like you talked about, I think this is the first time that TinCaps are having multiple bobblehead giveaways in a season, and pretty cool. One will be of Kevin Kiermaier, Fort Wayne native, Bishop Lourdes grad, and now a World Series champ, enjoying retirement after winning 4 Gold Glove Awards as one of the best center fielders really all time in baseball history. So that'll be an exciting one on July 11th. And then the last game of the regular season, actually on August 31st, so look that far ahead, on the Jackson Merrill bobblehead. And, Merrill, of course, went from playing in Fort Wayne at Parkview Field a couple years ago to last year immediately becoming an all-star for the Padres as a rookie. And then not to mention some celebrity appearances. So the legendary WWE Hall of Famer Mick Foley will be a special guest on Pro Wrestling Night in June. One that I'd say arguably I'm most excited for will be in mid-August, a Seinfeld night for the first time ever. Previously, we've had TV sitcom night, and Seinfeld has been part of that, but now it's going to be a spotlight on Seinfeld. And so Peterman, the actor John O'Hurley, will be a special guest. And then, of course, it's become really popular how we have a Fort Wayne Daisies night to celebrate the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. And one of the actresses from the movie A League of Their Own, Megan Cavanaugh, she's going to be a special guest at that game in mid-May. So I think, like you said, though, every single night pretty much has something. The fan favorites from over the years, like Star Wars, which this year will fittingly be on May the 4th. That one's back. I think, Brett, you probably already circled 80s night on your calendar. You name it. I guess one last major thing to touch on would be, last year for families, we had a Bluey game. It actually had multiple Bluey games because the first one sold out. A couple of years ago, we had a we had a Paw Patrol Day. Not to be confused with Paws and Claws when you bring your dog out to a game. But yeah, now this year, almost every single Sunday game is going to feature a different popular kids mascot. So from SpongeBob to Elmo. It's just incredible what the TinCaps are going to be offering fans this year. So that's just a sampling of it. All the details are at tincaps.com.
And SpongeBob SquarePants making a first appearance, I believe.
Yes. And so, as you might imagine, the team will have special jerseys for that game, along with several of these other nights. But, I think the SpongeBob jerseys might wind up being the most fun that the team wears this year. And, of course, some of the popular events like the music for the pregame concert series and the postgame postgame autographs presented by Midwest Box Breaks, those also back this year. Yep, exactly right. And for that matter, 28 games with fireworks, so the majority of the night games do feature fireworks. Those usual staples. Another kind of something that's old but new will be the Tuesday night family feast night games. We're expanding the value menu. So in the past, maybe it was only 4 or 5 items there. Now twice as many items will be featured there for $5 or less. So tickets still start at just $7. In this economy, no exaggeration. I think this is as great of a value as you're really going to be able to find for family-friendly entertainment. And by the way, as you well know, Brett, we also are going to have future Major League players on the field. We'll know the roster for sure until basically the end of March, when the team's going to be going from spring training in Arizona to up here. But Leo DeVries will be the one name likely to know. 18-year-old shortstop, was the top international free agent last year. And right now he is already part of the Major League spring training for the Padres in Arizona. So that might be one of those guys like a Jackson Merrill a couple of years ago. Enjoy him while we got him, because they're counting on him to be really, really good. And for those that like to consume, it will be Thirsty Thursdays once again, almost a staple of the promotional calendar at Parkview Field. John, always appreciate it. Look forward to the call of the game coming up tomorrow here at 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM, and have a safe travels getting back here to Fort Wayne on Saturday evening. All right, thanks a lot, Brett. I know the guys are going to try extra hard tomorrow to make sure they get the win, so that when you rejoin them on the road, the next time they'll have some ice cream to enjoy with you. Yeah, please be sure they all are very aware, because I'm sure that's their motivator, is that Brett gets ice cream. Appreciate it, John. Thanks. All right, thanks, guys. See ya. Yep, that's John Nolan joining us from Moon Township, Pennsylvania.
as the TinCaps get their promotional calendar out. That means you can go to tincaps.com, get all the information to get your tickets. And tomorrow, Don's basketball. Not yet.
Shoot, it's getting close, man.
Well, it is baseball season. You know, Mastodons opening up with LSU.
Them Tigers down there.
Yeah, let's pick on somebody our own size, right? Jeez. Nothing like taking on LSU. At least Paul Skeens isn't around.
Thank goodness.
Livy Dunn might be.
She might be hanging around.
Oh, yeah. Maybe she still likes a little baseball down at LSU. But anyway, we've got Mastodons basketball coming up tomorrow right here, 1:45 the pregame, as it's a huge contest against Robert Morris. The Mastodons trying to hang on. Right now they go into that game tomorrow tied for, tied for second place in the league. And so, or is it third place? I can't even keep track because all I know is I'm trying to keep them out of fifth place. Fifth place is the dog spot because top 8 teams in Horizon League, all top 8 except for one, will host a tournament game. The only one that will not is the 5th seed. And if the Dons lose tomorrow, they're really in danger of getting stuck with that dreaded 5th seed.
Yeah, right now it's a 3-way tie for second place in the league. Purdue, Fort Wayne, Robert Morris, and Youngstown State now all at 11-5.
Well, and they can get the tiebreaker over both Milwaukee and Robert Morris, which would be a big help in avoiding that 5th spot if they can get the win over Robert Morris. All right, we'll take a break, and we will come back. Greg Rakestraw joins us on the other side here on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Back on the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix 4 to 6. Brett Rupp, Adam Lundy, and joining us now on our guest line, it is Greg Rakestraw, ISC Sports Network, IHSAA Champions Network, Colts Broadcast, and more as he joins us here on the Sports Rush. Of course, we're heading into a big weekend of high school basketball. Locally, we've got races in the Summit Athletic Conference, the NE8, coming up tomorrow, regional basketball. But before we get into all that mess, let's talk IU Indy Jaguars, Greg. You've got a little bit of a break. No basketball this weekend. You got a couple of road games next week. Man, you're going to have to get warmed up before you get back on the mic on February 27th.
I've got just a few other play-by-play gigs that'll keep me busy. But from the IU Indy perspective, we're now home for the last 2 games of the regular season. So Robert Morris will be the final game in the jungle for the year. And then at the Coliseum for Wright State on March 1st. And in the last couple of games, Milwaukee was close, was an overtime game for IU Indy. The 2 since that time have been somewhat similar, where you just kind of see that there has been a great deal of progress made by IU Indy, but there is still a lot of ground to cover in terms of kind of catching most of the rest of the league. And they're sitting on 4 league wins. 2 of those are Green Bay, which is kind of a bingo-free space for everybody this year. One of those is Detroit Mercy. IU Indy heads to play at Callahan Hall on Wednesday, so they can maybe get another one there, as they have been, kind of hit by the injury bug at times this year. The one really good league win was at Youngstown State a couple of weeks ago, which was just the 3rd win in 25 tries for IU Indy against Youngstown State over the years. So, again, a lot of progress has been made. A foundation is being built, but it is still, there's still some work to do for Paul Casaro heading into year number 2 and beyond.
Just kind of a challenge when you don't have that rim protector, you don't have that big you can count on. And IU Indy right now trying to patch it together with inside play, but they really don't have it. It's kind of like what the Dons faced when they didn't have Eric Mulder on the floor.
Correct. And for IU Indy, that guy defensively and from a shot blocking standpoint, was set to be Julian Steinfeld. He was one of the 5 players that came from UIndy to IU Indy for Paul Casaro and with Paul Casaro. Julian's a 7-footer out of Germany. Because of injury, he's played all of 6 games this year. Now, offensively, didn't do much, only averaged 1.5 points a game, but had 4 rebounds. And again, he simply put, he's a 7-foot presence for you. Is he going to be the Dines kid from Youngstown State that is, leading the nation in shot blocking? Probably not. But again, he is going to be that rim protector that this team desperately needs. I think at some point, I think they'll kind of officially shut him down for the year, and then he would be eligible to come back for another season. and potentially be that guy defensively for the Jaguars next year. So hopefully that issue gets fixed going into next year.
What's the big storyline in high school basketball down in the central part of the state? Where are you at tonight, and what kind of races do we have down there?
So Carmel and HSE is my game tonight, which are two teams that are kind of hovering above 500. Carmel has just been crushed by the injury bug, and I know that nobody feels bad, when the largest school in the state, kind of has to go through it injury-wise, but that's what they're dealing with. Their leading player, and Alex Trudeau, is going to play at Huntington next year. He is out for the season with a torn MCL. They've been without Evan Harrell, who is a probably MAC Horizon League level recruit as a 6'7" junior. He has missed an entire month with a foot injury. He played for the first time in 2025, 8 days ago, and they lost to Lawrence North. They have this young man named Liam Mann, who has been a football kid, but has grown to 6'7", is playing basketball this year for the first time since junior high. He's averaging 11 points and 7 rebounds a game as he's been thrust into the spotlight with these injuries. Well, he got hurt in practice this week. I think he'll play, but he could be limited tonight. So the Carmel team that was good, not great, and now they're struggling to kind of tread water because of all the injuries they've been dealing with. Well, the storyline, go ahead. Yeah,
I was just going to say that the rankings in the state pretty much dominated by teams that circle around Indianapolis. So There's got to be good storylines.
Right. So the storyline for everybody statewide is who can get Fishers. Can anybody catch Fishers? Westfield led them last Thursday for a good chunk of that game. Fishers came from behind to win. Warsaw is the team that has given Fishers the closest game so far, a 3-point win for the Tigers in the opener of the Hall of Fame Classic. And so that's really the story. I would say the southern half of the bracket is a little more wide open. There is not a dominant team in 4A in the southern half this year. I think Lawrence North at their best is better than anything else. Braylon Mullins is the best player that would be in the southern half of the bracket. And you've got two teams from down south in Jeffersonville, now fully healthy, with 3 Division I seniors, Ray Singleton heading to play at Northwestern, both Michael Cooper and P.J. Douglas. You'll see them in the next few years heading to play at Wright State University. The Mitchell kid at Evansville Rice is really a talent as a sophomore. He's carried them to a lot of wins this year. So in terms of the southern half of the bracket, there's some parity there. But again, Fishers out of the northern half is the clear favorite in 4A this year.
What do you got scheduled for girls regionals? Are you going to be on any games anywhere?
I will. I'll have Danville and Roncalli is the game that I will have, which is a 3A game. And those two teams played each other earlier this year. Danville won by 9. Danville is rated 8th in 3A. Roncalli is not in the top 10 in terms of 3A. The southern half of the bracket was blown wide open last week with LN beating Lawrence Central. So we will have a new champ in 4A. And again, for those that don't follow it, both LC and HSE were 1-2 all year. HSE has not lost. Now, they were down in the second half against Westfield last week and came from behind to get that victory. But a lot of folks thought that this was shaping up to be an HSE-LC rematch from a buzzer-beating win that HSE had in the Hall of Fame Classic on December the 27th. However, LN avenged a 24-point loss 3 weeks earlier to get the win on their home floor in that sectional number 10 last week, 47-42. And now I think of the 4 teams that are playing in the, lack of a better term, Indianapolis Regional at Decatur Central this weekend. I think every team has at least 6 losses of that group, of Pendleton Heights, of Pike, of Lawrence North, of Franklin Central, who beat Center Grove on the open night of the tournament. So, again, you can make a case for 6 or 7 different teams from the south of 4A making it to Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Probably the best test that HSE will get in the northern half is this Saturday against Homestead. And again, I think you've heard me say this before. Homestead's my pick to win 4A next year. And they absolutely have a puncher's chance to beat HSE this year because of how well they can shoot the basketball in a given game. So, but HSE now with LC being knocked off in 4A, they're the clear favorite in terms of getting to the state finals and winning it for a second time in school history.
Should be another good one, too. In fact, the North 4A has got a couple of intriguing matchups. Warsaw against South Bend, Washington could be very intriguing, taking place up in LaPorte coming up tomorrow as well. All right, Greg, got to let you go. Got to move on, but always enjoy having our chats on Friday, and have a great weekend. Enjoy your high school basketball tonight, tomorrow, and we'll catch up with you again here not too far down the road.
All right, thanks, my friends.
Yep, Greg Rakestraw joining us here on the Sports Rush. Guy that covers so many different things. We could go so many different directions, of course, whether we talk about NFL, whether we talk about high school sports, whether we talk college basketball. I mean, we could have gotten into a whole discussion with Greg, and I'm sure he's very deeply informed on who he thinks the next coach will be at Indiana University. But always a great guest, especially to wrap up the week. Greg Rakestraw here on the Sports Rush. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, and we will wrap it up. Coming up on the other side of the break, it is the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Welcome back, final time to the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6, heading into a big sports weekend. Kind of buckle up, get ready for it, because coming up tonight, we've got a full night of high school basketball. And, of course, you've got a big one in the Summit Athletic Conference with Wayne visiting Southside. We will be in Leo for the Columbia City Eagles and the Leo Lions as they decide who's going to win that NEA championship. Really a 4-team race in 2 games tonight that could go a long way in deciding a champion. And so we will be there in Leo starting at 7:30. And our postgame show presented by Parkview Sports Medicine will be broadcasting live from the East DuPont Pizza Hut. Of course, it's always the perfect nightcap on a Friday night to get your Pizza Hut pizza, maybe the wings, maybe the pasta, maybe the salad bar, whatever fits your appetite. Get to Pizza Hut to wrap up your Friday night of high school basketball, and that is where we will be at the East DuPont Pizza Hut up until 10:30 tonight. But full night of high school basketball tonight. Coming up tomorrow, don't forget the best of the Sports Rush kicks things off at 8 o'clock with Talkin' Sports with Jim Shevlin at 9. Then it's golf with Jay Delsing. That'll be at 10 a.m. Purdue takes on Wisconsin. That game will be on our sister station. So the Boilermakers and the Badgers will be on 92.3 FM. WoWo Radio coming up tomorrow. And then we've got Purdue Fort Wayne against Robert Morris right here on 1380 The Fan, 100.9 FM with a 1:45 pregame, 2 o'clock tip. John Nolan filling in for me on the road trip. He'll be broadcasting live from Moon Township, Pennsylvania tomorrow for Mastodons basketball. And that is huge. Just look at the standings in the Horizon League and you'll figure out how big that game is against Robert Morris head-to-head, because the winner will have a firm spot on second place, and the loser will slip all the way down to, 4th? Maybe 5th, depending on Milwaukee.
Yeah, huge. Lot riding on tomorrow's game.
Also, then, tomorrow we will be joining the United Rentals 300 in progress. On Sunday, the Daytona 500 comes your way from the Daytona International Speedway. We've got coverage at 1:30 right here on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. So it will be a very full weekend. Also, best of luck to all of our girls participating in regional action. Hopefully, let's see, we've got, about 6, 7, 8 teams, and 7 of them have a chance to advance. We can't get all 8 because 2 of them play each other, but we could maybe get 7 of the 8. The one thing we know is we'll have 1 at least.
At minimum, yeah.
But best of luck. Warsaw, Snyder, Homestead, Eastside, Columbia City, Fremont, East Noble will play Norwell at Belmont, and then you've got Whitco also in 1A actions, or in 2A action. They'll be playing their regional at Caston. So it's a full slate, and hopefully we have a lot of teams to talk about heading into semi-state coming up next week. Big thanks to our guests that appeared on the show. Of course, always great to chat with John Nolan, especially when John is on the road and I'm not. But talking TinCaps baseball, the promotional schedule, and Mastodons basketball. And thanks to Greg Rakestraw for wrapping up our week here on the Sports Rush. Hope you have a great sports weekend. Be safe out there with some rough weather coming in for the weekend. We'll join you again on Monday, 4 to 6, another edition of the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM.